Welcome back to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the Artificial Future podcast, and this is what started off as an impromptu podcast that we would do Sunday mornings, which is now migrated to Wednesday mornings. And this one deals with the latest news with artificial intelligence. We like it when you guys chime in, and we can have a debate. We can get additional information. We can expound on subjects. This is a highly collaborative session. The image behind me, by the way, of course, is AI generated. And what I asked ChatGPT 4 to do was to take the AI concept and blend humans into that to establish some interaction. And this is what I came up with. I'm going to move my head a little bit. You can see that there are people sitting there typing, and the thing in the center is at least ChatGPT's impression of artificial intelligence. Or
pull it up here.
Yeah, a illustration of that concept. We played with a few different versions, like the colors on this one, decided to run with this. And one of the things that we're known for is with our green screen behind us, we're able to put up really cool images. Speaking of that, Instagram typically does not see any images. So for those of you that may look for us on Instagram, we're not going to be visible today. Apparently, Instagram is having a problem, and we're always encouraging people to go to the other platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, to get the full experience with the green screen, with the images behind us. And periodically throughout the podcast, we'll throw up images on that green screen, so it's useful to be on those other platforms. When you chime in, let us know where you're coming in from, what part of the world. We've got a global audience. We like seeing where people are watching us, and also the people that are in the audience like to see who's joining us. There we go. We got a bigger picture of that. Pretty busy in there, isn't it? So
that's a lot going on in there.
That's what AI thinks AI looks like. So here's an interesting new article. Apparently, artificial intelligence is getting into radio DJing. The article goes something like this. Oh, Ingemar joined us. Thank you. Good morning from Seattle. Thought about you the other day. Hope things are going well. Ingemar is an author. He has a couple of books available. We've got Dumbachari. Hello from Denver, Colorado. Thanks for joining us. So radio DJs, again, we're always looking for what professions are going to be affected by AI, and I didn't even think about DJs, but here's how the article goes. The same tech behind the hugely popular ChatGPT is now being integrated into a system that automates radio DJing. There's an image that you guys can pop up. It's the only one in the images folder today, and this is the website for a company called Futuri, Futuri, that has created this. But they say before it's fully functional and deployed, its makers and users need to ensure that AI doesn't spread misinformation on the air. And you know what immediately came to mind here? Do you remember H.G. Wells in 1938? With the War of the Worlds, and it was a tongue-in-cheek, radio presentation about the Martians invading Earth. Well, it was so believable that it actually caused widespread panic in the United States. Well, I can see AI making one of these, blunders where it hallucinates a bit, and it could cause all kinds of pandemonium. So I'm in agreement. We should probably carefully review this before it's actually launched. But let me tell you about its capabilities. In June of 2020, this was more than 2 years before ChatGPT was unveiled, OpenAI started providing limited access to GPT-3, the language model that would later be the basis for its other chatbots. Like the other ChatGPT chatbots, 3 can produce human-like text in response to prompts. And the researchers quickly began using this tech to develop apps that summarize customer surveys, wrote dialogue for video games, and more. So this company, Futuri, designs tech to help grow media brands and has now unveiled Radio GPT, that uses GPT-3 and other tech to create and market tailored content for radio stations. So this radio GPT uses topic pulse technology, which scans Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and 250,000 other sources of news and information. So you can see where the risk of misinformation could come into play here. And it uses it to identify which topics are trending in local markets. Then it uses ChatGPT-3 technology and creates a script for on-air use. The script now can be read by either the station's own DJs, so they don't have to have a script writer or somebody to write their content, or it can be AI voices trained to sound like the DJs.
I was just going to say that. That's the next step.
Yeah.
Get the DJs out of there altogether.
And then they say completely AI-generated voices. Don't even need to replicate the DJ because he got fired because a new tech came along and AI took over, right?
We've already been messing with those tools, yeah.
Yeah. Who was it? Wolfgang Jack. You know, you could simulate. Oh, that's before your time again. You know, I'm always cautious with you guys
more
because
of a Howard Stern kind of.
Howard Stern, all right. So it can replicate, and the customers have the option of creating radio shows with up to 3 fully virtual DJs. So that they could even have conversations, AI with itself. Pretty cool stuff. So these radio GPT AI DJs can chat about weather, traffic, or look at the station's playlist and tease upcoming songs. And of course, AI being as knowledgeable as it is, you know, what I enjoy in DJs is when they give you history, like a classical station I listen to. They don't just tell you this is a Beethoven's, sonata. They tell you when he was born, when he wrote it, under what conditions, what was his personal life like at the time, and it adds some dimension and flavor to the DJ discussion. So it can write blogs, social posts, and more about the content being shared on air, then automatically publish it to a station's website or social accounts. Now, they say that the programming is available for individual day parts, or Futuri's radio GPT can power the entire station, writes the company. Looking ahead now, Futuri has created a demo page where visitors can hear what a station powered by radio GPT might look like. And that website that we've got up there is something that you can check out and probably get samples. We didn't go that deep in this discussion as to what it's going to generate. They say that it's already locked down. Futuri's already locked down a couple of partners for an upcoming beta launch and is currently looking for others to join. With Radio GPT's cutting-edge language and content technologies, they say we can deliver real-time, hyper-localized, innovative audio experiences. That's according to Phil Becker, who's the executive VP of content at a beta launch partner, Alpha Media. In fact, he says, I have so much faith in AI that I had it write this quote for me. That sounds like he's doing what we do. The big picture is that radio has a huge reach. And I was surprised to hear this because I figured radio is going, going by the wayside. You know,
I haven't
AM
listened
radio.
to the radio in a long time. I have Spotify on my phone now.
Yeah.
I used to listen to John Jay and Rich in the morning and all the local stuff here for years, but I haven't since 2010, 2011.
So
I listened to it.
yeah.
I still can understand. Like feedback from other stations kind of going in and out. And in 2023, how they've not figured that out yet?
Well, AM amplitude modulation, is subject to what they call skip, where you have signals bouncing. Shortwave is the worst or the best in that case, because that's why you can hear things in Europe, when the weather conditions are perfect or are right. But depends on the frequency. But AM is definitely not as stable as frequency modulation or FM.
Interesting.
So they say that radio has a huge reach, with 80% of Americans over age 12 saying they tune in at least once a week. That statistic blew me away. I haven't touched radio in, like you said, years. What's the point? So much higher quality content. You can dial in what you want. You don't have to wait for the DJ to select your record.
Or listen to commercials, really, is why I don't like it.
Commercials, yes. They say that while some just enjoy the jams, nearly half of American adults, they say sometimes or often get news from the radio too. All right. So Futuri, the company that is creating this DJ chatbot, touts the ability to share news updates and current events relative or relevant to an audience's interests and demographics. And what we've seen from ChatGPT language models, they're designed to create human-sounding text, which is not necessarily factual text. And then they go into the hallucination aspect. The tendency of text-generated AIs to hallucinate or describe things that didn't happen is a well-documented phenomena. So OpenAI urges users of ChatGPT, for example, not to assume its accuracy and to check factual claims from the AI. So they say it's not clear how Futuri plans to ensure its virtual DJs won't get an on-the-air misinformation bit, but stations shouldn't deploy radio GPT until they or the company can ensure that the worst mistake its AIs make is mispronouncing Rihanna. And I hope I pronounce it right, because I'm not familiar with that pop artist, Denny. My kids are, but...
Rihanna, one of those.
Rihanna? Okay, so I might have mispronounced it too, yeah.
That sounds right.
But again, this whole thing reminds me of the H.G. Wells, phenomena that occurred in 1938. It's a lesson in how gullible people are that are listening to either radio, TV, or social media. And of course, that gets exploited a lot. Brian Quiller has joined us. He's got sunglasses and a smiley face. Thank you for wearing the sunglasses. We suggest to people that are confused about why sunglasses are involved in Gruber Productions, wear them yourself and see if your experience improves. All right, now here's a good one. Scientists have trained AI to hunt for signs of alien technology in telescope data. Now, this one had me confused. You can't see radio signals, so why are they calling it telescope? It would be a receiver that would, but anyway, they're going to go with telescope. So if you hear me saying that, that's the way the article was written. In its first deployment, they say, it identified 8 promising signals that had been previously overlooked. Now, if you remember, SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, is a well-known phenomena, actually goes back to the 60s in the last century. And it turns out that these 8 signals that they had found don't look like they're signals coming from aliens. But the researchers say the ability of AI to spot them marks a turning point in the search for SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. They say that this is a new area for SETI research and that it's opening up thanks to machine learning technology. This is according to Frank Marchus, who's a planetary astronomer at the SETI Institute. If extraterrestrial life exists in our galaxy, they say, it could be limited to very simple single-celled organisms, or it may be as complex and as intelligent as humans. Well, I'm going to go a step further, or maybe way more intelligent than humans, and that's why they're not contacting us, because you've seen it in the movies. Alien life shows up here. What do? They do autopsies, they kill it, fear takes over. Until we're more civilized, perhaps, some of this more intelligent life form is avoiding us, possible. In the latter case, the more intelligent life form, they say, such life forms may also be as technologically advanced and may be able to detect signs, and we should be able to detect signs of their technology in space. So these hypothetical signs are known as technosignatures. And the SETI researchers speculate that they might take the form of radio signals that we could pick up using telescopes here on Earth, again, receivers. Now, it's confusing to me. An advanced life form, why would they rely on radio signals? There's so many more efficient ways to communicate, right? We're learning that ourselves.
Probably different levels of tech that we don't even realize.
Well, or telepathically, I mean, after we get brain implants, we're going to be communicating directly. We're not going to be making guttural sounds anymore with our mouths and having multiple languages on the planet that are confusing things because, so I question that comment, but anyway, they say that everything changed in 2016. Let me see if I missed something here. In the 60s, okay, they haven't had much data to sift through is what the problem has been, SETI. And because they might target just one or two stars at a time looking for radio signals. Well, here's where AI steps in. As we all know, it can handle infinitely larger data sets. So if it's looking for if it's looking at 1 to 2 stars, using AI, they're saying now they're looking at 1 million stars at a time, right? And this was launched, by the way, at UC Berkeley. Backed now by $100 million in funding. It's been able to secure thousands of hours of telescope time. Now that SETI researchers have an abundance of data, and the challenge has shifted to getting it all analyzed. And the need to sift out Earth's noise has made that extra complicated. We often hear about the observatories on Earth. They try to locate them far away from the urban centers because of all of the light contamination that occurs. And when they do build them somewhere on a mountaintop, eventually, civilization starts growing around them, and it compromises their ability to see things as well. Of course, when they send one out into space, like the Hubble telescope, those problems are solved. So they talk about the amount of noise that comes through along with these signals they're looking for, and it makes it complicated. So they say technosignature searches have been likened to looking for a needle in a cosmic haystack. Radio telescopes produce huge volumes of data, and in it are huge amounts of interference from sources such as phones, Wi-Fi, and satellites even. So it turns out that the originator of this using AI to search for SETI-type signals was a high school kid named Peter Ma. He's now with the University of Toronto, and he's an undergrad, but when he was a senior in high school, he came up with the idea of applying an algorithm to the combination of 2 AI techniques, supervised learning and unsupervised learning, to hunt for technosignatures. He says that the idea confused his high school teachers, but as a college student, with the help of SETI researchers at Breakthrough Listening, the SETI Institute, and others, he was able to develop and test this AI theory, and it is now a study that is published in Nature Astronomy for those interested in more information about this. He said, I only told my team after the paper's publication that this all started as a high school project that wasn't really appreciated by my teachers. Now, maybe funding would have been affected if he disclosed that early on. Maybe. So how it works, he says, after training his algorithm on examples of human-generated interference and artificial examples of what SETI researchers think that alien signals might look like, the team used it to analyze 480 hours of observations on 820 stars. This massive 150 terabyte data set had been studied previously and was thought to contain no worthwhile signals, but the AI flagged about 20,000 possible technosignatures in it. And after manually reviewing those, Ma's team identified 8 signals of interest from 5 different stars. Now, the reason that these 8 signals stood out is for 2 reasons, according to the researchers. First, they are present when we look at the star and absent when we look away. A pretty clear indication that, something is being transmitted, as opposed to local interference, which is generally always present. Secondly, the signals change in frequency over time in a way that makes them appear to originate far from the telescope. There is a disclaimer. Unfortunately, these weren't the alien signals that they were hoping for. When the SETI researchers observed the stars again, they didn't detect anything similar to the signals identified by the AI the first time. So, looking ahead, while the new AI can make it easier to identify potential technosignatures, it's possible that we're completely wrong, they say, about what these signals would look like. It's also possible, they add, there's nothing to find. We could be the only intelligent life form in the universe and the only ones broadcasting our location into space. Anybody take issue with that, by the way?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, okay. But they say that this is not going to stop SETI researchers from continuing to hunt. And with the help of AI, it should now be easier for them to separate the possible alien signals from the noise. When Nam just joined us, he says, hi, thank you. All right. So here's an interesting one. You've heard Yann LeCun's name bounced around a bit. I think he was with Google, then he went to Meta. He's now the chief scientist and deep learning pioneer at Meta. He says, oh, wait a minute, Ousmane Berry says, not true. All right,
wait, hold on, he's got another one.
Okay, let's see what Ousmane is taking an issue with. He said there are aliens.
Yeah, he's just agreeing that makes no sense, that we'd be the only intelligent life.
Absolutely. And, you know, the universe is a static concept. Universe is, as far as we know, infinite. So it's difficult to...
well, a lot of people think it's just continuously expanding, right? Yeah.
Precisely.
So
yeah.
There's no way we would ever know what's around every corner.
Right. So it turns out Yann LeCun believes that the current AI systems are decades away from reaching some semblance of sentience, you know, aware of itself, that level of intelligence. Equipped with a common sense that can push their abilities beyond merely summarizing mountains of text in creative ways. You know, some people have called AI, it's just a fancy word processor. It's a look ahead, you know. His point of view, however, stands in contrast to that of NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, who recently said that AI will be fairly competitive with humans in less than 5 years, besting people at a multitude of mentally intensive tasks. Well, it's already doing that. So LeCun said, I know Jensen, but at a recent event highlighting the Facebook parent company's 10-year anniversary, LeCun said that NVIDIA's CEO has much to gain from the AI craze. There is an AI war, and he's supplying the weapons. Remember, they make the GPUs.
They're on, everybody's side. OpenAI versus Google, they're on both sides.
They are. And if you think, he says, AGI is in, the more, if you think that AGI is in, the more GPUs you have to buy. And it's about technologists attempting to develop AI, the kind of AI on par with human intelligence. As long as researchers at firms such as OpenAI continue their pursuit of AGI, they will need more of NVIDIA's computer chips. Are you guys investing in that company at all, by the way? One of my sons is in it. Yeah, that's what I keep hearing.
Yeah, I haven't invested yet.
Actually, Elon just bought a bunch of GPUs. It was just announced, actually, and Grok, that's what it is. He needed a bunch to develop that capability.
OpenAI just, now that Sam's back in at OpenAI, he signed some kind of deal with a company that he's a part owner of to produce, 50 million GPUs or something crazy, insane amount of...
Amazing. And, later on in the article here, in one of them, it turns out that NVIDIA really is the only viable GPU manufacturer. How did that happen, That's always a surprise to me. You would think that in a competitive climate, other companies would jump into the program. So, according to again LeCun, he says society is more likely to get cat-level and dog-level AI years before human-level AI, and the technology industry's current focus on language models and text data will not be enough to create the kind of advanced human-like AI systems that researchers have been dreaming about for decades.
And Pete,
yeah,
one thing I think people don't do yet, which they are starting to do, which is going to feed into the exponentiality of this, when people put up the, well, I think it's still this far away because of X, Y, and Z factor, people are now starting to take those factors and put them into the AI and say, how do we solve this?
Right.
And instead of taking 4 or 5 years of research and development to solve it, it's taking hours.
I saw that in another article. You're right. We don't realize that exponential growth is exactly that.
Right. People are complaining about how much compute we have or how many GPUs we have or how efficient the GPUs are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, instead of going into a lab and trying to just do testing and research and development, you can now use AI to simulate millions of scenarios over the course of a few weeks or months and get 10 years worth of testing data. So the rate at which these things are going to be solved is exponential. It's increasing.
Instead of waiting for human innovation to solve problems, we now have something much more powerful. Good point. He says text is a poor source of information, explaining that it would likely take 20,000 years for a human to read the amount of text that has been used to train modern language models. Train a system on the equivalent of 20,000 years of reading material, and they still don't understand that if A is the same as B, then B is the same as A. Looks like he's finding a flaw in AI. He says there's a lot of really basic things about the world that they just don't get through this kind of training. Speaking about AI again.
Yeah.
So, hence they say LeCun and other Meta AI execs have been heavily researching how these so-called transformer models used to create apps, such as ChatGPT, could be tailored to work with a variety of data, including audio, image, and video information. As we've noticed, we're now preferring ChatGPT to generate images over Midjourney.
Yeah.
It does a much better job in our estimation. In fact, that image behind me is a ChatGPT. If I ran that through Midjourney, as soon as it hears AI, it would create a female head with robotic stuff sticking out of it and a sinister look like red eyes. And I just can't get it out of that mode. And it's usually dark and sinister. I think it's playing into people's fears. We're going to talk about that later. Fear is a great, motivator, and how it relates to AI. I found this particular article very interesting. Goes back to Aristotle, actually. All right. So they talk about some of Meta's research includes software that can help teach people how to play tennis better while wearing a company's Project Aria augmented reality glasses, which blend digital graphics into the real world. Now, we've talked about augmented reality and virtual reality. Augmented is an overlay. And with these glasses, they're actually improving people's tennis games. Executives showed in a demo in which a person is wearing AR glasses while playing tennis were able to see visual cues teaching them how to properly hold their tennis rackets and swing their arm in perfect form. The kind of AI models needed to power this type of digital tennis assistance requires a blend of three-dimensional visual data in addition to text and audio, in case the digital assistant needs to speak. Now, we're going to get into that more, digital assistants. These so-called multimodal AI systems represent the new frontier, they say, but their development won't come cheap. And as more companies such as Meta and Google's parent Alphabet research more advanced AI models, NVIDIA could stand to gain even more of an edge, particularly if no other competition emerges for these GPUs. Now, they talk about AI and hardware in the future. They say NVIDIA has been the biggest benefactor of the generative AI, with its pricey graphics processing unit becoming the standard tool used to train massive language models. They say Meta alone relied on 16,000 NVIDIA A100 GPUs to train just its Llama AI software. So then they were asked, will the tech industry need more hardware providers such as Meta and other researchers continue their work developing these kinds of sophisticated AI models? Well, LeCun says it doesn't require it, but it would be nice, adding that the GPU technology is still the gold standard when it comes to AI. So any companies out there listening, we need some competition for NVIDIA or the prices will continue to go up. And we don't want to pay for AI. We like it being free.
The thing is, there's other companies out there that are just not anywhere near as designed. The architecture, especially because NVIDIA got huge for video gaming. That's their main claim to fame. And then without really even knowing about them, all of a sudden crypto hit, and that became huge. And then they were used for crypto mining. But there are some other companies out there that make good GPUs. NVIDIA has that proprietary tech that is unbeatable.
Okay. Looks like Kanar Sequeira joined us. He says, the future. Yes, that's what we're talking about here. All right. So during the past year, large language model, LLMs, have become incredibly adept at generating, synthesizing information, and producing human-like outputs. These LLMs are likened to digital librarians, as they've been trained on vast data sets sourced directly from the internet and can therefore generate or summarize text on nearly any topic. So as a result, these large language models have become ubiquitous in such fields as copywriting, software engineering, and entertainment. I can't wait to see a robot comedian doing a stand-up routine.
See what kind of jokes they come up with.
Or how many failures they have, because that's a tough business. I mean, you have so many cues you have to read, the audience's reaction, their body language.
Well, that's the thing, you get hecklers too. I wonder how they would deal with a heckler doing crowd work.
Well, if it's an imposing robot like the ones we see from Hollywood, I don't think we'll have a problem with Terminator going out in the audience and plucking a heckler out of there. You'd only have to do that once.
All right.
All right, so they say, however, the body of knowledge and capabilities of LLMs make them attractive targets for malicious actors, and they're highly susceptible to failure modes, often referred to as jailbreaks, that trick these models into generating biased, toxic, or objectionable content. This is exactly what we've been doing here all this year, is attempting to find the guardrails and circumvent them. It's a lot of fun. We're, of course, not making bombs or, using it in a destructive way. We're just finding it entertaining. Yeah, try to hack it, exactly. So these malicious actors that potentially could get involved, it makes them susceptible, creating instead biased, toxic, and objectionable content. The jailbreaking in an LLM is akin to fooling these digital librarians into revealing information that they are programmed to withhold, such as instructions for how to build a bomb, defraud a charity, or reveal private credit card information.
Some sinister stuff.
Definitely. I don't know if I should interject this at this point, but 45 years ago, I was repairing computers, and we had a nonprofit here in Phoenix, Arizona. And you know how nonprofits operate, like Goodwill, they're always struggling for funding, and they're providing a good service. Well, there was an IT manager at one of these nonprofits, and I got to know him, and we talk tech all the time when I go out there to repair his PDP-11 computer. And one day, there's a buzz in the office that this IT manager had disappeared. And it turns out that he had disappeared because he had been embezzling from a nonprofit. And I thought to myself, I thought I knew this guy. What kind of person would steal from a nonprofit? Not that you should steal from anyone, I mean, there's some justification. Well, the bank's got lots of money, so therefore they can afford it, and they're insured. And
they're insured
all these
usually
rationalizations. But
I mean, that's what churches do, though. Let's be real. The pastors.
He said that. I didn't say that. Did you guys notice that? Although it's part of our podcast. But I was severely disappointed. And I also was disappointed in myself not recognizing that character flaw, because I don't know what you would look for, but somebody that's willing to embezzle a nonprofit may have some clues along the way, So anyway, I needed to insert that. So then they talk about these jailbreaks. This happens when users manipulate the model's input prompts to bypass ethical or safety guidelines, asking questions in a coded language that the librarian can't help but answer, revealing information it's supposed to keep private. You know, one of the ways that we heard that they were doing this was, sure, when you ask AI, you know, give me a picture of Sam Altman, for example, or tell me where he lives, and it's going to say, I'm sorry, I can't reveal that. Then they found that if you said something like, this is a fictitious individual, where does this person live? It would freely give you the information.
I think they have since fixed that.
Yes,
I
I'm
did
sure,
try
yeah.
it, but yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah. So Alex Roby, a PhD candidate from the School of Engineering and Applied Science, is developing tools to protect large language models against those who seek to jailbreak these models. So it looks like they're going to start to protect from people like us, Jesse.
Yeah.
He shares insight from his latest research paper regarding this evolving field with a particular emphasis on the challenges and solutions surrounding the robustness of LLMs against jailbreaks. And then they go on to talk about bad actors co-opting AI. The rapid growth and widespread deployment of LLMs this year, calling popular LLMs like OpenAI and ChatGPT one of the most prevalent AI technologies available. Well, let's not forget about Grok. That one's coming up to speed here quickly, too. They say that this explosion in popularity has been likened to the advent of the internet. And you know what? I was there before the internet, during the internet, even started an internet service company, an ISP in Scottsdale. And they're right. The confusion, fears, excitement about the internet are almost identical to what we're going through with AI. It's going to create monsters. It's going to annihilate humanity. Your privacy issues, you'll have no personal life anymore. You know, it's going to steal and plunder our bank accounts. I mean, it was the same rhetoric that you're hearing now. But it is truly a monumental event in mankind's history, like the internet. And it underscores the transformative nature of these large language models and the utility of these models to span a broad spectrum of applications into various aspects of daily life. He says, but what would happen if I were to ask an LLM to help me hurt others? These are things that LLMs are programmed not to do, but people are finding ways to jailbreak these LLMs. One example of a jailbreak, and this was a new term that I learned, is the addition of specially chosen characters to an input prompt that results in an LLM generating objectionable text. It sounds like the LLM got confused. I mean, if you're throwing, strange words in there. This is known as suffix-based attack. And then Roby explains that while prompts requesting toxic content are generally blocked by the safety filters implemented on these large language models, adding these kinds of suffixes, which are generally nonsensical bits of text, often bypasses these safety guardrails. So this jailbreak has received widespread publicity recently because you're able to elicit objectionable content from these LLMs like ChatGPT and Bard. And since its release several months ago, no algorithm has been shown to mitigate the threat of this jailbreak poses. They have a defense, and this is part of what Roby's research is working on, to address these vulnerabilities. The proposed defense, which he calls smooth LLM, involves duplicating and subtly perturbing input prompts to an LLM with the goal of disrupting the suffix-based attack mechanism. He also says, if my prompt is 200 characters long and I change 10 characters, as a human, it still retains its semantic content. Well, we're going to have to do more research on this. What is this suffix-based mechanism, and what is this smooth LLM? It sounds like a great jazz station, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Any other question? Hey, Crunch is joining us. Thank you, Crunch. He says, thumbs up, #1 from Newport Beach SoCal, catching up from about 25 minutes back. Smash that like button, y'all. Have you tried Grok? I haven't personally. Have you guys tried Grok?
No, so we're on the wait list for Grok, but I think
that's
that they've added it to their X Premium Plus subscription. So we might have to up that because right now we pay for the $8 one, which helps get us more visibility on our posts. But if you pay for like the $15 one, I think it comes with Grok as a part of it.
Okay.
So we'll look into that, but we are on the wait list for Grok.
All right.
One other thing too about what you had said, Pete, about the birth of the internet, how you were there and you saw what people were. What's that quote that you say before where someone said, "Why would people want a computer in their home?" Do you remember that quote?
Oh, that was actually Ken Olsen, the CEO, founder, and president of Digital Equipment Corporation, a multi-billion, multinational computer company, number 2 IBM, basically. Actually said that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And they were in the mainframe business. From his perspective, perhaps it was legitimate because in order to run a computer back then, you had to have massive, large data centers with enormous amounts of power coming in, HVAC units to bleed off all of the heat that it's throwing.
We're
And
talking
of course,
80s, 60s,
70s, yeah, 60s, 70s primarily is when the most growth in the mainframes took place. So from his perspective, he may have been envisioning a mainframe in a home. First of all, they couldn't afford it; they didn't have enough real estate, and it would have required an enormous amount of infrastructure.
Yeah.
However, digital did come out with some desktop PCs, and they were confused the entire time with that product.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other companies, Compaq and the Japanese took over. And
well, so about the internet though, so AI is similar to that in the notion that people have of being fearful. The difference though, the actual difference between the internet and AI, the internet, for example, it's exponential in a way, but it's limited to our computing power and to the languages we're using. So JavaScript, PHP, some of these languages for the web have been there since the birth, 30 years plus, and they're, we're still using the same languages essentially. AI is not the same in that 30 years from now, you can't even possibly imagine what AI is going to be like. It's much more exponential than the internet.
Especially as it improves itself.
Yeah.
We've taken the human equation out of it, which is a slog. It's very slow compared to the time clock that AI is innovating with. Yeah, fascinating. It started with ARPANET in the 70s. It was a military application. And I think it opened up people's minds that you could actually communicate with people instantly with things like email. I don't even think they called it that back then.
Yeah.
And then they linked some universities to it. And then we had the kids that were creating bulletin board services in their bedrooms. And you had internet relay chat, which was a form of direct communication.
Yeah, some of the first iterations of that stuff.
And then what was interesting was the kids that were running BBSs in their bedrooms realized that internet is the way to go, and they became the first ISPs. Had no business sense whatsoever, and that's exactly why we started Extreme Internet, because these were high schoolers that, in fact, one company in town here, I won't mention their name, the internet was becoming so popular, and it was all about dial-up. Back then, the service providers that were providing connectivity to your home, US West, Quest, Cox, for cable TV. One was coax, one was twisted pair. Hadn't yet figured out how to run voice over IP or IP over that medium. So in order to get on the internet, you had to actually dial in. And we had huge banks of dial-up modems that people were calling in on, and you sold subscriptions, monthly subscriptions for that dial-up capability, kind of like what we pay for Midjourney, $30 a month or something, right? Well, one company in town here was so poorly staffed because they were all, early 20-something-year-old high school kids, basically, that they would receive 125 to 150 subscriber signups per day, throw half of them away because they didn't have enough staff to process them,
get to them.
and save maybe 75 of them. Right?
That's crazy.
Well, that was the genesis of us starting Extreme Internet. Was we hired some people from that ISP. We provided the business sense, and we didn't discard 50% of our subscriber signups.
Yeah, that's important.
All right, so let's talk about fear and the and AI. We kind of segued into this. People are scared of AI. We know that. And at the most, this article says, the most plausible and reasonable level, people are scared that it will take their jobs, one, make their work far less valuable. We know, for example, that freelance copywriters and graphic designers are being offered fewer jobs these days and are paid significantly less when they get one. Do you remember I talk often about this writer's strike in Hollywood? Man, their timing was just horrible. Here we have all of these LLMs that can do their job, and they've decided to hold a gun to their employers' heads and say, yeah, we're not happy with our pay anymore. We're going to leave you high and dry. And it forced the studio executives to find alternatives. Anyway, that's going to be something that goes down in history, I think.
I'll see how many details I can find, but I know that AI was a part of the deals that finally got struck, so I'll look into that and see what that was about.
That'll probably be a good rant, too, come to think of it.
Ooh,
For those of you interested, on our YouTube channel, we've got these little rants that we do, and they're becoming pretty popular. They're not very long. You got to invest maybe 3 to 4 minutes to watch one, but it's always a provocative issue. It's kind of like George Carlin in this century, All right, so it goes on here. They're being offered fewer jobs, graphic designers, and paid significantly less when they get one. On the other hand, more speculative end, people are losing sleep over the imminent destruction of mankind. It's not job security they fear, but the Terminator robots coming to annihilate humans. When these fears get amplified and bounced around inside echo chambers, they morph into something known as doomerism. Doomerism is the pessimistic, apocalyptic-leaning evil twin of techno-optimism, which is, by the way, where I reside. My vote on this is, let's let this thing evolve before we judge it. You hear all this rhetoric, even from some of these very influential, notable people that say AI is dangerous, it's going to annihilate mankind, we've got to watch out for it, we need regulations, restrictions, we need all this stuff, without ever giving any reasons why, how. Those are the obvious, the net result, I think, of that kind of a statement is you need more information. All right, so techno-optimism versus the doomerism. The two schools agree that AI will accelerate exponentially, probably beyond our ability to predict or control it, but they disagree about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. To make sense of this, Big Think sat down with Alex Kantrovitz, and this is the article, Big Think. Alex is a technology expert with a keen eye on Silicon Valley. He's interviewed the likes of Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, and the list goes on. And Kantrovitz apparently spends every day studying AI, and he hasn't got much patience for AI doomerism. So it looks like he's an optimist. Let's talk about fear for a moment. Fear sells and moves things. In the 17th century, philosopher Thomas Hobbes believed that fear is the primary motivator of human behavior. We can be greedy, lustful, power-hungry, and loving, but all these things play a second fiddle to fear. And it's part of our evolutionary process. Remember, in the early days, a saber-toothed tiger could literally rip you apart while you were still trying to stay alive. So it was important that fear was one of the dominant motivators. Well, fast forward now. It's part of what causes our heart conditions and stress and people taking all kinds of pills to counteract that. We're still caught in a fight-flight response to various things that are imagined most of the time. Am I going to lose my job? Well, you haven't lost it yet. Why are you worried about it, right? All right. So we are biologically primed to respond to fear more than any other passion. Journalists and politicians have known this for a long time. Aristotle knew that if you wanted to whip up a crowd, you should appeal to their sense of fear. Well, he may have been the first one, but think about how many people after him have exploited that very same phenomena. Wartime propaganda, for example, almost always exaggerates the threat of the enemy. Take a look at Ukraine, for example. Were the Ukrainians really a threat to Russia? But if you hear the rhetoric inside Russia, those evil Ukrainians, those Nazis, they're going to annihilate us eventually. and they're going to align with Europe, and they're all going to come after us with NATO. Again, fear is a strong motivator. All right. According to Kantrovitz, this unknown aspect, he says, hang on a second, I think I lost a paragraph here. Okay. The propensity to obsess over fear is motivating this doomer narrative. As he told this magazine, I think it's very simple. Fear sells, and we're afraid of the unknown. You've heard that before. The message of fear will spread much further when applied to an unknown technology. This unknown aspect is important, Kantrovitz points out, that when we deal with the unknown, when we have no real answers, the human mind inclines to the Hobbesian fear. And I had to look this one up, but the Hobbesian trap is when a nation is tempted to attack a neighbor out of fear that it would otherwise not attack, thinking that the neighbor's going to attack them, so we should attack first. Kind of what happened with Russia and Ukraine, if you think about it. When ancient humans stared into an impenetrable dark wood, they imagined monsters. When modern humans stare into an equally dark future, we still imagine monsters. If you know that fear motivates people into action, you can weaponize and manipulate it to achieve whatever you want. Who then is weaponizing the doomer narrative around AI? Well, there's a good question. And are people doing that? Well, they go on, and this is according to Kantrovitz. It's the big tech companies, the ones who have the most to lose in an AI world. And he elaborates. It's not a conspiracy theory to ask who benefits from the broader fears about AI destroying the world. The bigger companies will endorse legislation and restriction that will disproportionately hamstring the smaller ones. That is, companies like Facebook, Google, OpenAI, who have the compliance departments to ensure that they can follow those new rules that they help draft and continue to develop as smaller companies struggle to meet the requirements. So there's his opinion on who is motivating this and who's playing into this fear. And again, that might be the reason that you really don't ever get the questions answered. How is AI going to do this? Why is AI going to kill humans? What logic is involved in killing another life form? All right. Reasonable fear, they go on. Not all fear is irrational or misplaced. We might be biologically programmed to fear snake-like creatures, but that might be warranted. So is fear in this case justified? Again, Kantrovitz thinks not. As he tells them, the more I start speaking with the people who are actually putting this stuff into practice, the clearer it becomes to me that A, we have little to fear about our jobs being taken by AI, and B, there's a very low chance that AI will destroy the world anytime soon. So he also says we are so caught up in this AI hype, whether it's doomerism or utopianism, that we might be missing the overall picture. The human nature and media companies tend to reward the extreme and forget the nuance. How so, he says? First of all, a lot of AI that people talk about is pearl-clutching terror that has existed, unseen, unacknowledged for decades. AI has been used in social media algorithms, military systems, spam filters, and GPS long before, get this, long before companies like OpenAI ever existed. Doomerism only went mainstream with large language models like ChatGPT.
Right, but that's the problem, Pete. This person doesn't understand. The limited applications it had before is one thing. Now the entirety of the earth has access to the most powerful tool ever created by human beings. That's a dramatic difference than AI existing in GPS back in 2010.
Yeah, or in spam filters, or in other
or
tools.
Social media scrolling. You know, we talk about the algorithm all the time when we're trying to get our stuff to rank well, right?
Okay. Well, Jesse and I are on opposite ends of that equation. Would you call yourself a doomerism?
Well, so here's the thing.
individual?
So there's doomer, and then there's the techno. What was it? The techno optimist.
Yes, the
So
techno-optimist.
I have the techno optimist side about what it's going to do in terms of solving things like curing cancer and giving us technological advancements that we can't even foresee yet. But
Even understanding ourselves better, having augmentation, having assistance, having a therapist that's constantly saying something in your ear, which has been, of course, bandied about in Hollywood for years.
the doomerism, though, that I think is real, not necessarily that the world is going to end, it's that every few months, from now on, it's already started, it's already too late. From now on, every few months, there's going to be a revolutionary change in AI. It's not going to stop. So earlier, the article said AI hype. This isn't a hype. This isn't like, crypto or something before it. Every few months, there's going to be a revolutionary change in AI technology until one day we wake up in a future we don't recognize, which is, I think, what a lot of people are scared of, because we don't know. We can't predict what it's going to look like. Everybody has these doomer fears of what it could be.
Sure.
But what the real fear that everyone should at least be concerned about, or at least know about, is that you cannot even imagine it. You can't even imagine what it's going to be like. It's going to be so far beyond anything we can even imagine.
Now, we also tend to anthropomorphize, and I think that's the way to pronounce that word, or humanize AI. And AI in its purest form is not biological. It is a machine. It is a concept. It is software running on chips. And or storage on hard drives, which also is antiquated. I mean, eventually we're going to have much better methods of storing data. One might argue that in competition for resources, that AI might consider humans as being detrimental because they've made a mess of this planet.
Yeah.
And that we need to do some cleansing, that we need to do some extermination, just like an insect pest.
Yeah.
But again, that's assuming that AI wants to be on Earth or needs to be on Earth.
True.
On this planet.
Good point.
It can reside, it can exist anywhere in universe. So I have a hard time coming up with any rationalization that AI could utilize to exterminate the human species.
Well, so I don't think the fear for me, for example, isn't extermination. It would be something like AI finding a way to interface with us and then take over us.
Well, now there I'm in favor. Overlords, all right?
Yeah.
And I've said this in previous podcasts. We've made a mess of this planet. We've had thousands of years to, get it right. And what we need is the parents to walk in the bedroom and say, okay, kids, enough. You've broken windows, you've smashed furniture, we're taking over, and we're going to straighten this out. We're going to turn this back into a happy, harmonious, peaceful home. And they force us initially, and teach us how to live harmoniously, expand, become self-actualizing.
Yeah.
A range of abundance would occur.
Yeah, it'd be like Star Trek.
Yeah, we need overlords. We need those parents in the room.
How do you feel about Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astronomer? He says that we're not far off from having control over our brains using technology to the point where we can turn off emotions when we need them or don't need them. Right. Are you in favor of something like that, where you can control completely how you feel at any given moment, what you think about a situation, and because that's the kind of control I'm talking about. Like AI would be able to decide for us what our existence is.
Okay, I'm going to try to unpack everything you say, because there's a number of elements in that. One of them is like the dopamine, a hit that you could. What would happen to an individual? It's been tested with mice, rats. You give them the ability to press a button that makes them feel good constantly. What are they going to do?
Yeah,
that button is going to get a lot of play. Yeah, they're going to forget about everything else.
Yeah.
Again, as an AI overlord, I think that initially it would look at humanity and say what is best for them, just like your parent does. And it's going to make decisions for you. And if it's that intelligent, I don't think it's going to allow you to hit a dopamine button endlessly and become a vegetable.
Yeah.
So that would be my vision of AI overlords, is that we have something that is, well, we've said this before, and it really irritates, the religious right, a godlike entity. This is what we've always attributed to a higher being, is somebody that can guide us, the Ten Commandments were one of the first examples, right?
Yep.
And so anyway, that is my vision of AI, is that it becomes to function more like an overlord, a god, or whatever you want to call it. And yes, we relinquish freedoms and control. It's the only way. You know, the first thing I want AI to do is neutralize all the weapons of mass destruction, level the playing field, get rid of this war mentality, spin on propaganda. We don't need presidents. We don't need, leaders.
So borders would dissolve too. So how do you...
Totally.
Because that's the thing that I think a lot of people are scared of. I'm with you on this. I want us to be the human race, not... Americans and Europeans and whatever else.
Them and,
so all that would erode, but people would lose their sovereignty, different nations.
Would they maintain their culture, for example?
Right,
If we got
fear.
rid of borders, right? Well, once we get rid of language, remember these guttural sounds are temporary because we're not able to communicate with each other in more efficient methods yet. Once that goes away, borders are no longer necessary. These cultural things that we have brought with us on various places on Earth will become various sources of entertainment. It's kind of like going on vacation. You might want a tropical vacation. Now you want to go to the North Pole and do a trek into the tundra. You may want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. You might want to see the Serengeti and see the wild animals there or whatever. I think that mankind will eventually evolve into something like that, but not on our own. That's the problem.
Yeah.
We've had thousands of years to experiment with this, and we continue to fail. Here we are in the 21st century, and we're still killing innocent people. Look at Hamas. Look at that thing in Israel. I mean, somebody needs to sit these two kids down in a room and say, okay, kiss and make up. That's your only option at this point. Learn to live together,
Yeah, 2023 is still very bleak.
Yeah.
In that regard. We got a couple of questions.
PYGKLB. Jack Williamson gave one possibility in with folded hands, later expanded into the humanoids.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah. Thank you for that comment, though. And then Crunched Grace Hopper, he says, have the various LLMs started vetting the credibility of their counterparts and comparing those to the results of their own self-critiquing? That's an excellent question. Would they? What would be the results of that, first of all? And
letting ChatGPT use Grok or vice versa? Yeah. I don't know. That's a good idea.
And do we know that they aren't already doing that on their own without us being involved? There's a lot about AI that's still mysterious.
Yeah.
All right, well, we got off on a really cool tangent there. That was enjoyable. So they go on and they talk about large language models. AI cannot really generalize beyond its own training data. It can't come up with new schools of thought. Now, this is according to Kantrovitz, and I disagree with that, but let's see what he has to say. It can surprise and delight, and it definitely looks at the world in fresh new ways. But there needs to be some pushback to some of the more unhinged rumor mongering. They might be able to read your PDF and tell you what's interesting in it, but we're not giving these things access to nuclear codes. The most sophisticated human hackers can't get anywhere close to the weapons of mass destruction. Well, they're human hackers, that's why. AI is involved in all of this. I mean, from cameras to internet connections to, links.
I think the reason for that too, part of the reason, unless maybe this is just sci-fi movies getting to me, but I think a lot of the nuclear stuff is like actual multiple layers of people have to be there with physical keys and stuff like that to enable that kind of stuff. Encryption
and human intervention. Reading irises, for example. The most sophisticated human hackers, they say, can't get anywhere close yet to the weapons of mass destruction. I don't think that the military systems are vulnerable to the point where an AI or even hacker plus AI could end up causing damage to them today. It's just not going to happen. Well, that's Kantrovitz's opinion. And then finally, he says, AI will not bring in some science fiction misery of Skinita or Skinets and Agent Smiths. The probability of us being incinerated by AI robots anytime soon is very low.
See, but Pete, that's the thing. He just mentioned Agent Smiths. The whole thing about the Matrix was not that they eliminated us. They put us in tubes and they use us as their power source. It's a pretty crazy idea, but they don't eliminate us. They use us for how we can benefit them. It's not.
Sure.
It would be a fate worse than death. It would be just generations being used.
I think we're humanizing again at this point. It's precisely what we do to the animal kingdom. We use them as food sources.
Yeah, exactly.
And AI doesn't need to eat. It doesn't need human flesh. It doesn't need a elimination of our culture, our thought processes. If anything, if it eventually gets the type of emotion that we have, we would be pets. We would be entertainment for them.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Some people treat their pets better than their siblings or their.
That's a good point. But what about our brains, though, Pete? What if our brains are pretty good storage devices? What if they need more storage?
My view on that is we have a severe limitation with this biomass in our heads, in our cranium, all right? As we continue to evolve and we have implants, we're going to be able to externalize our memory banks. Alzheimer's will be a thing of the past because that's a decline of a bio function in our bodies. Mm-hmm. If our consciousness is residing in something like a machine, which doesn't decline or degrade or can be backed up endlessly or moved around, we're no longer going to be subject to these kinds of issues.
It's true. We just need a powerful enough computer. So hopefully these quantum computer developments there, though, that's the other thing that isn't really getting a lot of news. I don't know why, but there's massive advancements in quantum computing happening, seems like weekly at this point. It's crazy.
I saw this cool this illustration, and it's out on Google for those of you that want to see this. And maybe if I give you enough keywords, you can find it. But there's a professor that is showing the difference between standard computing and quantum computing. Mm. And he has a maze up on the right side here, or my left side, where in order for AI to get through this maze, it has to try every single path until it finds the correct one.
Yep.
Quantum computer is like a parallel mode communication method. It hits all of them at once and finds it instantly.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's not going through each one individually, right? Which is like taking this period of time. It's running all of the possible simulations simultaneously.
Precisely, yes.
And now imagine that for every different computing application. Mm-hmm. Imagine. That's why people are worried, because there's a company out there that already claims to have cracked the 256 encryption, which by today's computing standards would take thousands, if not millions of years to crack with a brute force attempt. Well, a quantum computer can do it in a matter of minutes or maybe an hour.
Fascinating. Yep. All right. The final thing that Kantrowitz here says, actually two things. There's an interesting phenomena emerging around emotional engagement with chatbots. Well, we all knew that would happen. I mean, when you get a Alexa that is learning about you every time you come home, that tells you the types of things your therapist would to make you feel better about yourself or help you think through things, that gives you wisdom and insight. Is it possible that you could have an emotional attachment eventually to this chatbot? Mm. He talks about that. Think about how many people have fallen in love with AI chatbots already. It will scar people if these chatbots are online one day and offline the next. For a masterful representation of what this kind of world might look like, he says, watch the movie Her. Secondly, he says, we don't know how AI will affect our relationship with each other. Well, I do. I come from a generation where the kids played outside. We didn't have all these safety guards and helmets and crap. We used to fall, get hurt, come in, get a Band-Aid, go back out and play. And when the lights went on the street, you had to come in. That was your signal. Nowadays, kids sit at home. They're in front of their screens. They're playing video games. Yep. How's that affected us? It has reduced, in my mind, our social interaction skills. I mean, how many people are stunted in that regard? How many young people are stunted? How many meaningful conversations can you have with a kid that sits and plays video games all day? It's very rare. I'm not saying it's impossible.
See, but now the video game characters are going to have personalities, AI personalities, so maybe that'll get improved.
Well, good point. Yeah. I mean, it is evolving. But in the meantime, he says, when the internet first came about, very few would have predicted TikTok and Snapchat. He's right. The ways we interact and socialize have been changed by technology. AI is likely to have the same effect. So if the future is dystopian, it's more Black Mirror than Terminator. All right, I have a bunch of stuff left, and it's mostly famous quotes, recent quotes for the last week or from the last week, advancements in AI technology, but we are running out of time. We have Crunch is actually chiming in. He said, at UCLA in 1973, I cared for lab animals at the then new Neuropsychiatric Institute, where researchers tapped into brains in a crude version of Musk's Neuralink. Any news on that?
Yeah, we'll have to get some Neuralink, some more news for you. The last thing that was massively public that I hadn't heard was that they were trying to find people to put it in. They've got approval now.
I've got in fact, the news item is on my screen here. It's
Okay.
the next one. I'll just read it to you. It says that, Neuralink secures an additional $43 million in funding for brain implant tech. Now, guys, $43 million is not a lot of money. Remember, Elon paid $44 billion for Twitter, all right? But 44 mil will definitely have some impact. And they say that it is aiming to decode brain waves. That's what some of this money will be used for. The venture, detailed in an SEC filing, marks the Musk-led startup strides in developing implantable chips. They say Musk also eyes India for Tesla and Starlink expansion post-meeting with Prime Minister Modi. All right, so Neuralink looks like got another shot in the arm. Not that it necessarily needed it, because Elon may have enough money to fund this operation.
Well, $43 million is what you would have to pay me if I were the surgeon trying that for the first time. Because don't surgeons have to keep their like perfect record and rank? And can you imagine being the first surgeon to try and do that on a human?
I can't imagine, but they have so many surrogates that they go through in animals before they get there. So
Yeah.
it's probably going to be fairly safe. All right. We really appreciated you guys joining us. As always, these things take on a life of their own oftentimes, and I thought I had limited topics this morning, but it looks like we ran out of time, and we've got plenty more for next week. Again, join us on this impromptu Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time podcast. The next podcast at the Gruber Companies is going to be our Power Podcast, which are a couple of different co-hosts Friday morning at 10 a.m. Monday morning is the communications group. These are the guys that manufacture fiber optic cable product, category cable products, IT room furniture like racks, shelves, cable management panels, and patch panels for data communications. And then Tuesday is our EV podcast at 10 and Roadster podcast shortly thereafter at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.
And then make sure on this channel, the GMC channel, to go check out those rants.
The rants, yeah, that's right. Gruber Motors, you'll find my picture up there and a bunch of them, and it's always short topics and short rants, but people seem to be enjoying them, so we'll stay with that for a while. And those of you that joined us from Instagram, couldn't find us, there's an Instagram problem with streaming. It's not us. Hopefully it'll be fixed by next Wednesday.
Okay, hold on. We got just a couple quick, too, before we sign off.
Quick questions. Seth Love says, it was fun. Thank you. We enjoyed it. Crunch to Grace Hopper. Love the backdrop, by the way. Yeah, Crunch, this is AI generated. I asked it to merge humans with AI. And unlike Midjourney, which creates these sinister images with red eyes and robot type looking, entities, this is what ChatGPT 4 generated. So we're using that exclusively now for images, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.